Hey there, my name's Charles, and in this Networking 101 video, we're going to demonstrate how to connect two Azure virtual networks together using network peering. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel to learn more about Azure. So most organizations use a hub and spoke type model for their virtual networks, meaning that we have one kind of main virtual network, that's our hub, kind of works as a central location. Maybe it's got a firewall in it. Maybe this is where our VPNs are back to on-premises, to other clouds, other environments. So that's that one central location. And then off of that hub, we have spokes. And this could be for different applications, different use cases, things that need to be kind of isolated, but might have communication needs still back to on-premises or back to other clouds. And so rather than creating multiple VPNs, especially if we're using something like ExpressRoute, we're not going to have multiple ExpressRoute circuits for every application. We're going to centralize that and use that off of the hub network. So in this case, maybe our spoke network needs to communicate with these other services, and it would do so through that hub network. Now, in Azure, virtual networks are security boundaries. So if we have two virtual networks, then by default, those two separate virtual networks cannot communicate with each other. The services within the virtual network, within the subnets, most likely can, unless a firewall or network security group has been put in place. But if we've got a demo, or think of this one as our hub network versus our spoke network, if these two things are just out there created as they are right now, they're just kind of basic virtual networks, a virtual machine in the hub would not be able to communicate with a virtual machine in the spoke. The virtual network is the security boundary. Now, in this hub and spoke type model, we probably want that to be able to happen. We want a virtual machine in the spoke to be able to use a VPN or use ExpressRoute or do something in this hub network. And so to make that communication possible, the recommended way is to use virtual network peering. So to do that, we would go into one of these two virtual networks. These are two VNets just defined in our demo resource group here. First, we'll just take a look at the IP addresses, because one of the primary components around virtual network peering is making sure the address spaces do not overlap. So the address space of our hub network, our demo 01 network, is 10.2.0.0/16. So that's the address range of this virtual network. So if we're going to peer this virtual network with any other network, the other network cannot have the same address range or cannot overlap. Those two things don't work with virtual network peering. So we'll go back, that's demo 01, we'll go look at our spoke 01, go to the same address space, and make sure that it is not a 10.2 network. So in this case, I've deployed this one as 172.16.0.0. So in this case, our address spaces are not overlapping. We should be able to peer these two networks together. So to do that, it doesn't matter whether we do this from the spoke or from the hub. It's super easy if we're in the same subscription. Peerings can be done across Azure subscriptions. It does not have to be in the same subscription. It just makes it easier because as we go into peering, click Add, it's going to be able to show in the drop-downs here that we have permissions. We know exactly where this other network is that we're trying to connect to. So this page is kind of broken up into two sections. It's not really, it's not obvious that it is, but the first one is this virtual network, meaning the network locally that we clicked from, so on the spoke network, and the remote virtual network, so the other side of this connection, the remote connection. So on this virtual network side, the local side, we may call this, spoke to hub, just to kind of make it simple. So this locally is the spoke network. We're connecting to the hub network. By default, kind of the point of the virtual network, we want to allow traffic. So we want to allow traffic to the other remote virtual network. We want to allow forwarded traffic from the remote virtual network to our network, to the spoke. And are we going to use any type of virtual network gateway or route server? So the two allows that are defaults, these are most likely what you want because you're setting up the peering connection for a reason. The virtual network gateway is dependent on whether the hub or the remote network has a VPN to on-prem or another cloud, another location. Because by default, peering connections are not transitive. So it's really just like a one-to-one connection. If we want to use that VPN, then we'd have to configure this here. So that's one direction, right? Like this is spoke to hub. Now we have to do the other way around. And so the remote peering lane, in this case, is probably going to be, hub to spoke. And then this is where, again, if it's in the same subscription, super easy. There's a drop down here. If it's not in the same subscription, then we have to grab the resource ID. So maybe if you were doing this with a partner organization, or if you're a consultant connecting to your client's network or something like that, then you have to trade resource IDs. But since we're in the same subscription, we just have the drop down here. I will select the name of the other virtual network. So I did this from the spoke network. So now I'm looking for my hub network, which is the demo 01 network here. And then same options that we have above around, are we going to allow traffic to the remote network? Do we want to allow forwarded traffic? Again, both of these are probably yes, unless you have a specific use case that you're trying to do unidirection network flows. But if we want bidirectional communication, we'll have to set both of these to allow. Same idea with the VPN. If one of these have a VPN and we want to forward that traffic on, we would have to configure one, and then we'd be able to select this, but none is the default here. And so we'll click add, and this will go and create this virtual network peering connection between our two virtual networks, our spoke and our hub. Should only take a few seconds. What it's doing behind the scenes is really just creating a static route from the one address space to the other address space, which is why they're not transitive, because it's only a single static route behind the scenes. And also another reason why the address spaces cannot overlap, because then if you try to create a static route and the address spaces are the same, your routing is going to get confused. So we'll give this just a second here. Should be, yep, just like that, quickly connected. So now on the spoke to the hub is connected. Now, if we were to deploy a virtual machine, in this subnet on the 172.16 network, it would be able to communicate over to the 10 network. So if we go back to our demo network, we'll see the same thing in peering. Our hub to spoke, so the other way around, is also connected. And the address space here, 10.2, all of the subnets in this address space would be able to communicate to the spoke networks. So that's virtual network peering in a nutshell. It's pretty quick. It's pretty easy to set up and configure. It's one-to-one connections from one virtual network to another virtual network. They are not transitive by default. If we wanted any other type of communication to on-prem, Azure, AWS, anything like that, we would have to deploy a virtual network gateway, set up a site-to-site VPN, and then we would be able to forward traffic along that connection as well for ExpressRoute too. So there's non-transitive, one-to-one connection, and address spaces cannot overlap. They have to be different address spaces. Those are the three kind of things for peering. We'll talk about the VPNs and things in a later video. Thanks for watching. I hope you were able to take something away from this video. I create these on Twitch every week, every Friday afternoon. If you have any questions that you would like to come ask live and in person, feel free to come follow me on Twitch as well. Thanks for watching.